Welcome. You're listening to This Leader, the podcast. If you lead people and are seeking the transformational, high-impact secrets that will lead to greater joy and fulfillment in your work, will optimize your team performance, and will help you create a happy, highly productive workplace, then you are this leader and you're in the right place. I'm your host, Claire Laughlin, and each week my guests and I will explore the mindsets, techniques, and actionable strategies that will help you build the career, team, and organization of your dreams. Because I believe no one should have to suffer in a dysfunctional workplace. Let's get started. Have you ever had a brilliant idea, but when you tried to communicate it, something got lost in translation? Your audience looked confused or distracted or bored. And you left thinking, ugh, if I could only get my ideas across like Sylvia, for example, or I wish I could command attention like Mario so they'd listen. But what if the problem isn't that you need to be more like those other speakers or like anyone else? What if the solution is becoming more authentically you? My guest today has cracked the code on authentic leadership communication. I'm excited for you to meet Salvatore Manzi, who has spent 25 years transforming how brilliant minds communicate their expertise. Salvatore calls himself a digital nomad, and he's lived and coached people all over the world on how to overcome the universal challenge of bridging technical brilliance with magnetic influence. He's coached leaders at LinkedIn, Genentech, Microsoft, and many other organizations. And his signature You, Then Me framework and three-pillar approach to content, delivery, and presence have helped introverted innovators become compelling leaders without sacrificing their authenticity. One of the things that makes Salvatore extraordinary is how he honors different minds while creating universal connection. So whether you're leading a team, presenting to executives, or trying to advocate for your ideas in meetings, Salvatore presents practical frameworks for amplifying your expertise without changing who you are. And he's a great storyteller. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Salvatore Manzi. Welcome, Salvatore. So good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited about this conversation. I had the great pleasure of reading the preface to your book, Clear and Compelling. And what a great preface. I love it. And I just want to dig into your story. I want to jump right in because I loved hearing about your excitement and enthusiasm as a child, watching your father return home from speaking at conferences. And your mother, I don't know much about her yet, but I'd love to know how that really excited you and led you on a path. And then you had your own struggles. Tell me the story. Tell us the story.
My father spoke at conferences, and whenever he would come home from that, as opposed to other things, he would come home so lit up. He had energy from having been in front of the audience or whatever it was. And it just made me think, I want to do whatever this public speaking thing is. And my mom facilitated a lot of events. She organized events, she ran events. So I got the public speaking side from my father and the facilitation side from my mother. You mentioned the struggle. When I did go forth and I said, I'm going to take on the stage, I literally lost my voice. And I was like, what's happening here? My body is betraying me. What is going on? And it set me out on a course to understand this art of communication, the neuroscience, the psychology, the organizational behavior of all of it. And being an introvert, being an analytical minded person, I needed to understand how this worked in my world as opposed to the average extrovert, for which public speaking oftentimes comes a little more easy.
Yeah, interesting. And you talk about how so much of communication training is oriented toward the extroverted person. Say more about that, because I actually, in testing, I test as a little bit of an introvert and a little bit like sort of, you know, how there's this sort of scale and I'm kind of on the introverted side of the middle.
Got it.
I used to think I was an extrovert, but it seems more and more true that my one differentiator that I can think about is that I need my time alone. I need that recharge time, that downtime, and small groups. Like, the intimacy of a small group is great, although I certainly don't mind standing in front of a big crowd. So when the time is right, but tell me, how did you discover the difference there? What wasn't working for you in some of the traditional methodology that you discovered?
Well, when I first started jumping out there, I got Dale Carnegie's book on public speaking, and it really is sort of the old 20th century model of motivation. Like you got to be high energy, you've got to have these geared to selling yourself kind of thing, and like you like channel your charisma and show up and be a little bit louder. And that obviously wasn't it. And it's evolved since then, but a lot of communication training is geared towards shaping your natural extroverted tendencies into more of a public speaking arena. I would pivot and say there's also Toastmasters, which I highly recommend. And it's an opportunity to keep practicing. And that's what we need in order to refine the tool. We got to keep practicing. Challenge with Toastmasters is you're only going to be as good as whoever the peer is in there that's better than you. And you might get the communication strategy that you need from that person. And it doesn't always dive into what are the unique challenges that you're facing and your path towards becoming a better communicator and a better leader of people. We can't lead people if we can't share our vision. Part of becoming an emergent leader is becoming more effective at communicating with influence so that we have impact.
Yes, I think that's so powerful. I taught years and years and years of public speaking, both in the college classroom and then in organizations. And my favorite part was watching a person stand up straighter and own their ideas and step into that space with, that risky space with confidence. Oh man, I just used to love to watch the confidence grow over the course of our time together. Isn't that beautiful?
It's so fun. It's so fun watching a person become an embodied speaker where they're not in their head, they're not reciting bullet points or a speech, but they're actually communicating with their entire body and connecting with their audience one to one in the moment. It's fantastic.
That is the thing. And I think that's what is missing in so many approaches, especially in the workplace. Let's make it really short, really fast. Let's go in there and let's teach you how to hit those points, It just doesn't seem to have the same impact of calling someone forth into that leadership and that influence and that vision. So I love just you putting these things together. It's not just speaking, it's leading, it's influencing, it's all of that together.
Thank you. And not to discount having the tools and techniques because those are important to start refining how we communicate. There is a driving force below all of that. And that is what I call presence. Some people call it other things, but what is that presence? And for me, presence is where comfort meets authenticity. I'd be comfortable being myself, which takes knowing myself, which takes knowing my understanding of this topic, this person, this connection, and then emitting whatever it is that I need to convey regarding that topic, person, or situation from that sense of authenticity and comfort. Yeah.
So it's really standing in your authenticity first and foremost, being present with oneself.
Yeah.
As really a core driver. If you've got that first, and then you've got your topic knowledge, of course, and then you've got your understanding of your audience.
Know your audience, key principle. I could tell you stories about times I went in with a presentation that didn't fit the audience and that did not work. I took a stand-up comedy because I'm an introvert. I need to overcome this. So I took improv, I took stand-up. And stand-up, I got through the class, I had a solid five. I came, I delivered. It was a rock star moment. People were clapping. Somebody came up to me afterwards. Hey, you want to come to my event? I want you to do a set at my event. And I'm like, yeah. And so I went to the next event and I did the same 5 minutes.
Right.
Very different audience. Did not connect with the humor at all. It was silent. It was crickets. I was mortified. I said, I'm never doing that again. Like you always have to do it one more time, right? After you fail. Right? So I did get up one more time in a very small stand-up club. But I learned there the importance of know your audience. And that's really the key because that leads into principle number one. My number one principle of communication is you, then me. I need to be able to talk about you, your hopes, your fears, your desires, your understanding of this, what you're bringing to this conversation so that I can build relevance. If I move into my agenda, my thought, my point before acknowledging and expressing my understanding of your point of view, it's going to disconnect. But if I create that connection, I'm going to have an opening. Suddenly, my direct report is able to hear me. They're not coming at me with defensively. Suddenly, the person I'm trying to manage up to that never listens to me, and I say, hey, I think I know how you're seeing it. Maybe it's like this. And maybe if we looked at it this way, all of a sudden, that person up there that never listens is listening because we did a you before me.
Isn't that just the key right there? How did you learn that? I mean, you just told us the story of the stand up, but really, you began your journey. You started really learning and growing. You went through so many different iterations, I'm sure, and lots of different, teachers and situations. But do you have a story there for me of when did it really hit you that, wow, this is the thing that most people are getting backwards?
I've been coaching communications for 20 years now. So I started doing public speaking and then I pivoted and started coaching communications. And in that 20 years, I've taught multiple forms of curriculum and I've worked with leaders speaking before the United Nations or running for a president or CEO. And more often than not, that person, that independent contractor that was elevated to a director position and now is leading meetings and directing things like that. And every one of these curriculums touch on a point, but they don't hit it the same way. And it was when I was leading a training for an offsite. It was an inaugural team leading meeting for this small startup. And the CTO and the CEO were like this. Everybody was watching this, and I'm in charge of the room. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a bloodbath. And so I went back to my teaching of you, then me. And I didn't call it then at the time, but I went back to my way of communicating the you, then me. And I said, let's do it this way. Before you could respond, you need to acknowledge what you heard from that person, and then you can make your response. And so we had to keep slowing both of them down until they started saying in this thing. And all of a sudden, they started communicating. And all of a sudden, the whole room got involved. And all of a sudden, like the problem that was the core issue for the team resolved and they started moving forward. I just got goosebumps. It was a magical moment. And I was like, you have to talk about you, then me. And I'm like, wait, that's it. It's you, then me. And that's where the principle was born.
I love it. I love it. And it's so true, isn't it? That moment of, if we don't understand the person we're talking to, we can talk at them all day long and they'll pick up some things. If there's trust and, other things are aligned, they'll pick up some stuff. But I always think, where's the magic? Where's the magic moment? And the magic comes when you see deeply, right? You can really connect with a person. You can see them deeply. You can see them profoundly, understand them, and speak to their needs, right? And then if your message doesn't have anything for them, well, that's another lesson. I'm trying to sell you something and it's not for you. In a sense, I'm trying to sell you an idea or something.
I helped an organization retrain 800 sales representatives that were going from selling widgets to selling software as a service. Big jump. Because selling widgets, how many you want? What kind you need? What's the problem you need? This tool is going to fix. Done. It's a checkbox. To a consultative conversation. And the key to a consultative conversation is eliciting that loop, that feedback loop. And unless I'm repeating what I heard you say, expressing what I understand your situation, and then really getting to the heart of what's driving the frustration, I can't solve your problem. There isn't a widget for it.
Right.
And so you, then me became a guiding principle to this retraining to go from transactional checkbox selling to influential, impactful, consultative selling. And I know that not everybody listening is in sales, but this applies to convincing my direct report that what I need them to do is actually what I need them to do. It starts with that consultative voice, that consultative loop.
Right. Yes, I think we minimize the word sales when we're trying to influence, we're trying to inspire. People may, bristle at this, but we're selling ideas. I mean, we're influencing, selling, persuading. If you do it with heart and you do it with mutually good ends in mind, I'm all for it.
I got my degree in public relations, business communications, and one of my teachers said, you are always selling yourself. And I was like, ugh, and I left class. I'm leaving this. And then as I processed it, I was like, oh man, they're right. I am always selling myself. And the only way to sell myself, as everybody knows, is you can't just go, hey, you want to buy this pen? You have to start with you. I'm going too deep in this.
Okay, I want to ask you specifically about, you talk a lot about teaching analytical minds and technically brilliant people and sort of introverted folks.
Yeah.
I really do believe that there's a challenge there that so many of my listeners face and just leaders in general. It's how do you take that knowledge that you have, we sometimes call it the curse of knowledge, this technical brilliance, and package it, so to speak, in that you, then me kind of way. And that's a big question, but just riff with me a little bit on that. What do you think about that?
We're going to have to unpack this for a little while. The idea of having so much technical brilliance that I need to communicate across, the first thing I would offer there is dialogue, not download.
Mm.
If I'm technical to technical conversation, I'm understanding zeros and ones. I understand it. Like, it's the same thing if you're in an organization where you speak a lot of jargon. If you're within your team, you can speak in jargon and acronyms. And you go outside that team, you can't do that, right? Same thing if you are expressing technical brilliance, or if you're trying to manage up and say why your vision for this thing is going to work out. We can't just lay out all of the things and why it's going to work. What we have to do is build the case of why important. This is relevant. We have to sell the idea of what can potentially happen for the better with this. And once we get them excited about that better idea, then we can start unpacking the technical brilliance, you and then me in that aspect right there. But I would pivot a little bit. I do break down communication, the art of communication, into content, delivery, and presence. Content is how do you package that content? Delivery is how do you communicate? And presence is all the underlying beliefs, experiences, energy, what you're bringing to that situation to do these two things. And when it comes to content, my book, Clear and Compelling, compresses 20 years of frameworks to use in various situations to make sure that you are communicating in a way that your audience is going to be able to understand, connect with, process, and collaborate with you.
I like that a lot. I think, too, one thing I've always thought about with the curse of knowledge phenomenon, we know a lot. We want to hurry up and tell them all, you know. I've worked with a lot of people who have this sense that, okay, I got one shot. I have to, download as much as I can because I want them to have this. And it's like drinking from a fire hose. You're not going to get much there. You may want to back away from that slightly.
If I could tell you everything about it, then you'll be convinced. All you need to do is read or understand or hear. Once you get the information, then you're obviously, I don't need to do anything more. No, it doesn't work that way.
Why is that wrong?
It's not the way the brain works. The brain is a meaning-making device, not a precision recording device. Neuroscience tells us that when you are listening to something, especially something that's complex, your brain is going to prioritize things that actually have meaning, that seem to have some relevance to you, and you're being able to process and understand and learn those things. You'll learn everything else. So unfortunately, you might have the most precise data points, but unless there's been a you then me first, those data points aren't going to land. Brain needs to find meaning before it can connect to the precision.
Got it. Okay. So say I'm a leader.
Okay.
And so let's pretend. Okay, I'm a leader and I've got this team. And let's say we're new to each other. I'm a new leader to this team. And I come in and I've got a charge. I know what I'm supposed to do with this team. It's my time with this team to shine. Okay. How do I start? I've got this sort of bunch of understanding that I feel I need to download to this team. But I really want to make a difference. And I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact soon. You know what I mean? What is the path that I would follow? Give me a couple of the first steps.
First of all, this is so juicy. It's like candy to me right now. Let's do this. Let's do this. I would offer number one, connection before content. Your team needs to connect with each other and connect with their personal why they're on this team, why it's important to them, why this mission makes sense to them. They need to be committed on that level before they can buy into and get behind your vision and your mission, what you know needs to happen with this team. Obviously, if they're on the team, there must be something to it, but vocalizing it, creating a shared language around it, understanding what each other are bringing to that particular thing is going to be the first step. That's number one. You want to create a shared language where there's connection before content, before you get into it. What would be the second step? What would you propose for the second step?
Well, I think we could unpack the connection before content a little bit more and say the driving shared purpose, the connection with one another, and understanding needs between leader and each team member, right? Understanding each other's needs and that shared vision. And then I would say leave the technical details out for now and create a pathway together,
Yeah.
a vision for where we're headed together. It's not a presentation, it's a dialogue that leads to a shared picture of what is that future we're going toward. And now, what are the steps we should take? And then I would just focus
Uh-huh.
on the first step or two. Like, let's get there and see how we do. And then we can evaluate a little bit. And then let's get to the next step and the next step. What do you think?
I love it. Connection before content, shared language, shared vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I would offer on my website, clearandcompellingplaybook.com, you can sign up and you get a download for the uncertainty framework. And this is key in this because the uncertainty framework, if you're having to communicate to your team about something that we don't have all the details or you're not able to be transparent about all the details, you can use this framework to communicate it. And as this is what we know, this is what we don't know. This is what I believe, and this is what I'm committed to. And here's what you can do and where I believe this is going. That's it. It's a simple framework. You can practice it in low stakes environments, work your way up so that you have it on the fly when you get into those moments. But if you use that with this new team launch, you have an opportunity to talk about, look, it's not known right now, but here's what I'm committed to. Here's what I'm going to do. And here's what you can do.
Yes, I like that because you're really building that shared commitment to build it together. I like that idea of practicing in low stakes types of things because I feel like that's the trust builder. That builds the trust and the connectivity so that when you get to the really high stakes moments, you're not asking them, you're not just saying, hey, just trust me. You already have a foundation of trust.
Can I just say, I love where you took that. That is not what I meant, but absolutely 100% everything you just said. Practice it in low stakes one-on-one with your team so that they build trust so that when you get to that moment, you have to. So many of my clients deal with the fear of public speaking. Like I have to get up in front of my group. I have to get in front of an all hands, whatever it is. It comes up. The fear of public speaking is going to come up. It's healthy. It's normal. It's natural. Flow with it. And part of the reason why I say practice in low stakes is that if you get used to the framework in a low stakes situation where your heart isn't racing, then you've got the muscle memory for a high stakes situation where your heart is racing. And that also is another pivot that I'll share for your leaders too. If you do have a high stakes presentation to get to, one of the best ways to prepare for that is to go into a room, do a dozen jacking jacks, burpees, run in place for a minute, and then deliver your first line with a composed and clear voice. Get your body into that physical state of high intensity and then practice being able to communicate from a clear, level-headed place. You've got the tools. And then when you get in front of the board and they're like, why did this happen? You're like, oh, that flush of energy. You're like, no, I practiced this. I know what's happened. Got this. And you show up in the presence that you want to have.
Okay, I love that. You know what? This is going to take me to sort of another place, but you and I touched on this earlier outside of our podcast environment. We were just chit-chatting, but about the Q&A, question and answer, environment where maybe you give a great presentation, you practice, you do all that. So many people, I feel in my experience, don't properly prepare for that Q&A. So what kind of tips do you have for folks around that?
This is my sweet spot right now. At least it's like my favorite thing to work on with people. Preparing for the Q&A, it integrates the you and me. It integrates a lot of things to it. But number one, like Q&A doesn't have to be the formal Q&A. You might get a Q&A opportunity one-on-one with your team or in a meeting or just on a one-off. So having a framework, which I offer to that Q&A, is going to help you. Number one, if you are doing a formal presentation and you get to Q&A, have a pocket question. Be ready to say, some of you might be there. Because I don't know if you've ever been there. Somebody says, "Are there any questions?" Crickets. So have a pocket question. We're asking the audience to shift from being passive observers to active engagers. So having a question in the pocket to say, a lot of my people ask me about this is helpful. Number two, with that pocket question, put the elephant on the table. Some of you may be wondering and answer the toughest question. If you're not prepared to answer the question you don't want them to ask, they're going to ask it and you won't be prepared. So prepare for the question you don't want them to ask. Answer the question. And last thing I will say is it is a 3-step process to answering a question. The second part is the hardest, and that's where you acknowledge the questioner. That doesn't mean, I hear you. You need to acknowledge why their question is important and relevant and why they're asking that. And it's hard for smart people. The smarter you are, the harder it is, I judge, to do that step because we internalize they already know this. I don't need to say this. This is wasting time. They're going to think I'm deflecting the answer. You're building rapport. That's what that you then me, that's the second step in the Q&A. The you then me is building rapport so that you can then pivot to your answer and tell them you're absolutely wrong. Because if you pivot to that, you're absolutely wrong. They'll be like, wait, defensive, right?
Right. I think that aligns quite well with just this overall concept of you, then me, because if you really pause and understand your audience, you will understand what they're going to resist.
Uh-huh.
You're going to understand what they're going to say, this doesn't feel right, or yeah, but, and you're going to be able to anticipate those objections. And that's where I find building some of that into the actual presentation, I think is wise. But also that's a great opportunity in Q&A. If you have very limited time, for example, and you go, okay, can I have some Q&A time afterwards? You can start right off Q&A, right? Nobody has a direct question. You might say, here's some questions I normally get. You might be wondering, you might be concerned about that kind of thing. I love Q&A. I think that's my favorite.
It's my favorite too. It's the highest level of engagement with your audience. You don't have to wonder, you're not having to remember anything. You're actually responding dynamically in the moment. And it is a high stakes, high wire act, right? You could take your entire presentation offline, not by not having the right answer, but by damaging rapport.
Yes, you've just delivered a beautiful presentation. Everything went swimmingly. And then somehow in the Q&A, everything goes awry. You violate trust with the audience and suddenly you got to dig yourself out of that ditch. Okay, I want to really go to the deeper impact here. And I want to ask you what kind of wisdom you would share with someone who sees themselves struggling or really aligns with your story of struggling, being inspired by your dad and finding, oh, shoot, it's not working as easily for me as I think it must be for my father. So for the person that really resonates with that, what say you to that young person?
It's totally normal. And hopefully everybody has felt that at some point. Like, you see somebody up there and you're like, how do they make it look so easy? And why is it so hard for me? First thing I'd offer is spot it, got it. If you're able to spot somebody else doing something effectively, that means you have the capacity to do it. The fact that you're able to spot it means that you have the ability to do it. Just takes courage to get up there and do it. Second thing I would offer is all communication is contextual. Depends on who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and the environment in which you're talking. So the imposter syndrome might come up when you're talking about this topic, or you're talking to that person or that size of person, or you're talking in this space. Like imposter is never going to be completely gone, but knowing where do you get triggered and what belief is that attached to? How can we rewire that belief? How can we turn it into a supportive belief? How can we reframe that experience that you had the first time you got on stage, like I did, into something positive? Like, how can you find something positive? NLP is a wonderful tool for that as well. The second thing I would offer is that there are 2 methods to improving your communication: immersion and exposure. Exposure means I'm going to take every opportunity to speak up. I'm going to speak up in that meeting. I'm going to speak to the sales clerk. I'm going to speak to my barista. I'm going to take more opportunities to speak than I usually do just to develop the reps, go to Toastmasters. The second, immersion, is where you jump full in. Like, I'm going to run that meeting. I'm going to give that presentation. I'm going to deliver this message, whatever it is, because it's more of a baptism by fire but it's a higher, faster learning curve. Obviously, you know which path I chose. I was like, I want to do this. So I went with the immersion. So choose your pathway. And then the last thing I would offer is that practice makes permanent, not perfect. People think practice makes perfect. No, practice makes permanent. Without feedback, you're not going to get better. You can practice your tennis serve a million times, but if you're holding the racket wrong, you just groove that bad habit into the system. Got to find somebody, a trusted peer that can give you feedback. And I'll offer this, be specific. Working on my pause. I'd like for you to give me feedback at the end of this presentation. How did I do with my pause? Or whatever it is.
Yes. I think that is so critical because I notice when I'm working with leaders on feedback loops, one of the shifts I've made that's very helpful is to say, ask them for their help and advice as opposed to asking them for feedback, so to speak. Like instead of saying, would you give me some feedback on my speech?
You were great.
Exactly. Oh, you were great. Nothing wrong. All good. No, I need your help and advice. I notice you're very good at this one particular thing, and I'm really trying to work on that. You just talked about the pause. I noticed that you're a really good storyteller. Salvatore, you're a great storyteller. I would love to get better at my storytelling. In this meeting that we're in, I'm going to attempt to weave a story in. Would you listen for that? And afterwards, could we debrief it? I'd love to hear your specific take on that. I want to know how you think I could improve, what you might have done differently, something like that. I know that sounds like a lot, but I feel like it would cue you up to know exactly how you can be helpful. And now what I'm doing is I'm asking you not to be superior to me because so many people have a hard time with that. Like, I don't want to be superior to you, so I don't want to give you feedback, so to speak. Or you might say to yourself, I don't know if I'm so good at that. So why are you asking me to give you feedback on that? I'm questioning my own ability, and now you're asking me to help you get better. I don't know if I can do that. I feel like there's a lot of potential ways that people could interrupt their own ability to give feedback unless we cue it up properly.
Yeah, cue it up properly. And to your point, the way you frame that, I mean, everybody loves to be helpful. So the way you frame that made me feel like I can be really helpful here. Like I can be
Right.
really supportive and this is going to be great. And oh, you think I'm great? Please tell me more. I love that. Like who doesn't love hearing that?
Well, thank you so much, Salvatore. This has been such a rich, and wonderful interview. And by the way, I have to go back and add context. NLP, neuro linguistic programming. We skimmed over that one, and I want to make sure that's clear. That will be in the show notes along with your frameworks, but most importantly, your link, a link to your website where there are so many good free resources and the pre-order for your awesome book, which I cannot wait for.
Thank you.
Clear and compelling by design. Say the website again.
It's clearandcompellingplaybook.com.
Good. Clearandcompellingplaybook.com. That's where you can find Salvatore. Where else can they find you?
Oh, please find me on LinkedIn. If you've ever left a meeting and said, oh, I wish I had said, I want to hear from you.
Oh, that's good.
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Very good. What a pleasure. Thank you so much for how you're helping people go out into the world and be their authentic selves. You really embody that, Salvatore. We've just recently met, but I really appreciate your presence and your authenticity. And I know that anyone that works with you will be blessed to do so. So thank you for bringing that to the world.
Thank you, Claire. It's been truly an honor to join you on This Leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about my services and for lots of free resources and additional tools to enrich your journey, visit my website and subscribe to my newsletter at clairelaughlin.com. If you have a question about leadership, teams, or organizational culture you'd like me to address on the podcast, please reach out to me at support@clairelaughlin.com and connect with me on social channels @ClaireLaughlin Consulting. Until next time, lead the way.